At this point in time, let the children come forward. Mr. Mike will bring the children's message.
Trusting for see heaven here to speak. You trade your legs for angels' wings. And once we've all said goodbye, you take a run and leap and you learn to fly. Sing along if you know. Bye, bye, little Sebastian. Missed you in the saddest fashion. Bye, bye, little Sebastian. You're 5,000 candles in the wind. It'll become apparent why I picked that song today. So how we all doing? Oh, we got a new friend here, I think. Hello, new friend. Okay, she's gonna go off to mine with matching dresses. So if you ask me what my favorite TV show of all time is, I couldn't tell you. It would just depend too much on my mood of the time and maybe who I'm talking to. But if you would ask me to make a list of my 10 favorite shows, maybe not a top 10 list, but just what my 10 favorite shows of all time would be, I am sure a show called Parks and Recreation would make that list every time. Did you guys ever see that show, Parks and Recreation? Anybody here? I know you did. You did. So some of you might know where I'm going with this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the show and then one particular little storyline, okay? So Parks and Recreation, the main character is a lady named Leslie Knope. And it's all about her life and her job working for the Parks and Recreation Department of her hometown called Pawnee, which is a small town in central Indiana, where we live. So Pawnee, when it was first a city a long, long time ago, was much bigger than it was now. See, what happened was all of the rich people lived on one side of the city and all of the not rich people lived on the other side. And so what they decided was all of the rich people wanted to make their own city, so they cut the city in half, and the rich part of the city is now a new town, a new city called Eagleton, while the old city where the not as rich people live is still called Pawnee. You guys get that so far? It's okay. So after this happened, Pawnee and Eagleton were always fighting with each other and couldn't find a way to get along. This was going on for 200 years. That's a long time. So now Leslie, she was very proud to be from Pawnee. And since she worked for the city, she sometimes joined in on the squabbling. But in the end, she always found a way to compromise, to find a way to solve whatever problem there was, until the next one came around, of course. So one time, the problem was really big. What happened was the rich city, Eagleton, spent way too much money and now they have none. They're totally broke. This means that they may be taken over by the state and they won't be their own city anymore. Now at first, Leslie celebrated this, thinking Pawnee had won since now Eagleton will soon not be a city anymore. She was tempted to sit back, watch them fall, and laugh at them as they were hurting. Now, because the show was set in central Indiana, a big part of it was high school basketball, as people in that area love their high school basketball. I'm sure many of us here do too. I know one over there in particular really loves his high school basketball. So one episode took place during the big game between Pawnee High and Eagleton High. And this was after they found out that Eagleton may not be a city anymore. Leslie and her husband were in the audience watching the game, cheering for Pawnee, of course. So what happened during the game made Leslie think about what was happening to Eagleton, and she really shouldn't be happy about it. So what happened was a player for the Eagleton team got hurt while playing. He twisted his ankle and couldn't stand or walk on his own. When this was noticed, without even thinking, a player from the Pawnee team went over and helped up the player from the Eagleton team and helped bring him back to his bench where he could be taken care of. So, Leslie saw this. She got to thinking, you don't celebrate when somebody is hurting. When they are down and cannot walk on their own, you're supposed to help them. So this is when Leslie got the idea to help Eagleton up from their hurting. Her idea was to bring the two cities together, just like they were, like in the beginning, 200 some years ago, and the two would become one city again named Pawnee. This didn't come easy. But the two found ways to put aside their differences and become one, as it was the best thing to do for all involved. Leslie realized that a city isn't borders and names and buildings, but it's the people who live in those places, and it's the people who needed the help, not just a place, a little piece of ground called Eagleton. So sometimes when we think of church, we think of a building where we come to worship. But the church, it's not a building. Is that going to surprise you? The church isn't a building? No. The church is made up of men, women, boys, and girls who have chosen to follow Jesus. You, me, everybody here, all of us together, we are the church, correct? Am I correct? Yes. Okay. I'm making sure you're paying attention. So sometimes things may happen in a church causing some members to not want to be a part of the church or any church anymore. Some people say, I can be a Christian without going to church. And that might be true. But by ourselves, we are not very strong. When Satan tries to tempt us to do something that we know is wrong, it may be difficult to resist him if we try to go it alone. But if we stand together with others who follow Jesus, they will be a source of strength and encouragement. We will be much stronger than we would be by ourselves. Okay, now, I always have to put a Jesus story in here, right? So here comes that part, the part that brings it all home. So one day, Jesus went off by himself to pray. He prayed for his disciples because he knew that his disciples had to live in the world and that they would be tempted by evil things, of the world. He also knew that if his disciples would come together as one, they would be much stronger than they would as individuals. So he prayed and asked God to protect them and to help them to be one, just as he and his Father were one. So when Satan tempts you to do things that you know are wrong, remember the lesson from the basketball game. There is strength in unity. And that brings us to our memory verse for August, which is, okay, go ahead. I was going to ask her to do it, but maybe next year.
Finally, all of you be like-minded, not be sympathetic, love one another, be compassionate and humble. I, Peter.
Oh, no, yeah, right the first time. Say it again. 1 Peter. Yeah, right first.
1 Peter 3.
There you go. Yay. Okay, so a little longer applause than usual. That's probably just the place we are here. Okay, let's pray. Father, protect us and help us to be one with other believers, just as you are one with Jesus. And all the God's children say, Amen.